Hello. Thank you, everybody, for joining our session. And we're really excited to be in the Women in Analytics virtual conference and really excited to talk about our topic, how data will empower and change the mobility landscape in cities. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Sophia Mohr. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at COTA, the Central Ohio Transit Authority. My background, I've been at COTA for about a year and a half, and we're really looking at the future of mobility here. So I'm excited to talk to you about a project that we're working on with Waycare, and I'm going to hand it over to Na'ama to introduce herself.
Thank you, Sophia. So my name is Na'ama. I work as a project manager at Waycare. I've been with the startup for about a year and a half already. And kind of really excited to be working in the smart transport space.
I know we have quite a large audience here, so wanted to give you a little bit of background about what's happening in the Central Ohio area. Columbus, Ohio is the 11th fastest growing city in the United States. And we have been on a lot of lists in the past 5-6 years about one of the best places to live in the United States. So with that, we're expecting growth of about 1 million people in the next 20 to 25 years. Right now, we are at about 1 million. And then the 15 county region in the Central Ohio area is expected to be 3 million by 2050. So we're really expecting a lot of growth in this region. And we're estimating about 140 people move to this region every day. That is great for our city and it's great for Columbus. However, that can bring a lot of congestion and a lot of new conversations into how a city might grow and how can we still make it a great place to live here. So let me dive a little bit deeper about COTA and the Central Ohio area. So COTA is the Central Ohio Transit Authority. We are the mobility solutions provider for the area. We're very proud to say that we have been named Outstanding Public Transportation Organization twice in the past 3 years. In 2019, we provided more than 19 million trips. We serve the Central Ohio area, which is 10 suburbs and 5 counties. We have a multitude of services with our fixed routes, our mainstream to serve our paratransit community. We also have some on-demand services such as COTA Plus and other on-demand types of activities. We're really proud last year that we were able to actually launch our bus on demand service, which was the first full-time service in the United States. But I think the key thing, especially in times of COVID, we're really looking at our data and analytics to understand how we can provide services, not just during COVID, but during normal times as well. So as I mentioned, mobility is a big part of how a city moves and how a city breathes. And I think all of you, if you're from small towns or big cities, being stuck in traffic or not understanding how things are moving can be a big part to happiness in our daily lives. And I think we've really understood that in times of COVID, that we need to understand how can we make mobility easier for everyone. Mobility provides you access to not just your workplace, but to have fun, to get to run errands, to find your groceries. And when your mobility is hindered, that impacts your life. And when you think about that across the entire city, and for those who rely on transit, not having access to mobility or having your mobility hindered really impacts how you live and your overall life. And that's really something that we're working on at COTA. Our mission and vision is to move every life forward, and we really take that to heart. So to talk about data a little bit more, the data really helps us understand our community. And in 2019, COTA went through a strategic planning process to find out what are our guiding principles and what are our guardrails when we think about serving that community need, as I talked about, making sure that everyone has access to mobility. And first of all, this all centers around equity, diversity, inclusion. We want to make sure that we are meeting every aspect of the community, and we were thinking about the entire community when we're designing our systems. But in addition to that, we want to make sure that we improve our customer experience. We're achieving organizational excellence and trying to make sure that we are run efficiently and effectively, that we are providing access to mobility options. As I mentioned, we have multiple services. We have everything from fixed routes to on-demand services to really meet like what different people might be wanting. But lastly, we're prioritizing that use of data and analytics. We know that to be able to provide our services, we need to understand who our community is and how they're using it, and what are ways that we can make it better and how we can run more efficiently as an organization. So we have really upped the notch on this and made sure that using data and analytics is part of one of our 4 guiding principles as an organization. Traffic is the next mobility problem to solve. When you think about your city or your town, and when I'm thinking about Columbus, which I've lived in the majority of my life, I have started to see how, as the growth continues, how traffic is affecting us. And it's taking me a little bit longer to get to places than it did in the past. And again, when you think about that accessibility to everyone, that may impact how long it takes you to get into a job. It may impact where you might be able to have access to a job. If something that used to take 30 minutes to get to your job now takes an hour, that job may no longer be attainable for you, and it actually impacts your livelihood. So we're really taking that to heart about mobility. And we have partnered with Waycare to really think about mobility in a different way. And how can we revolutionize how we look at traffic today and how we look at how we are functioning as a city. So we're working with not just ourselves, but we're working with other public safety and other traveler experts in the city. So this is something pretty revolutionary for a city. Is you'll see on the graphic on the left that we're looking at the 13 county region. These are different agencies that have not worked together in the past for various reasons. They were only focused on their part of the city. But when you start to think about the opportunities, is what if all of these groups actually work together? What if we were able to share that information across the wider region and allow those different agencies to talk and to work with each other and understand what's happening? That gives so much visibility into what's happening, and it really starts to have all of us moving in the same direction rather than having something that's disjointed. And we worked with Waycare to start the deployment of an artificial intelligence cloud-based software that will allow us to look at traffic management. And rather than being reactive, actually have this information to allow us to be more proactive in the area. I think you can tell the excitement that we both have about this project. We want to make sure that that we have some success criteria in talking about this. Number one, it's not just about congestion, even though we want to make sure that everything is flowing and everyone can and has that mobility. But we really see this as a system to be able to increase safety. If we're able to see accidents earlier, or if we're able to predict an accident might happen, that actually helps all of us, because if we can react to an accident a couple minutes faster, that's actually life-saving. If we can, from a transit point of view, if we can see that an accident has happened, we can start to reroute rather than getting stuck in that situation where we want to make sure emergency vehicles can get there, we can start to plan and reroute rather than being reactive and stuck in there. And then this, of course, helps clearance times because we want to make sure that traffic and we're all continuing to move. And having that information actually helps increase the safety for all of us. When you think about all the different regions, think about the number of data sets suddenly that we will now have at our fingertips that feed into this platform. Accidents that weren't maybe necessarily reported or had that visibility in another region. Now you start to get visibility across the region about what's happening everywhere and not just in your own community. But also you'll have access to what users are also reporting. I think many people in the audience have probably used apps such as Waze, and allowing users to be able to report that accidents, but having the agencies being able to see what the public is reporting, that allows, again, that increased safety because you'll have higher visibility and a quicker response time by knowing what's happening out there. We talked already a lot about increasing that cross-agency collaboration. Think of all of these agencies being able to not just work together to have this information, but also being able to share information in terms of what's happening, and that can actually help resolve some of the situations we're having. With this cross-company, cross-agency collaboration, this is going to improve operational efficiencies by a great extent, not just for COTA, but also for everyone in the audience about that reduction in time in waiting in unexpected accidents. The faster that we can communicate, the faster we can make sure that the safety of the individuals who are involved in that incident are taken care of, the faster that we can all move and the faster transit can continue to move as well. This is also going to provide a higher level of public transparency regarding, what's happening in the region, so all of you can plan as well, because we're going to have a lot more people looking at our system and having an eye out what's happening in the city. And this should improve an overall on-time performance, not just for the transit organization, but for all of us in terms of places that we want to go. I talked about the regional scope already, but you can kind of see in the smaller box in the center, that is actually the Columbus, Ohio area. But you can see that we're looking at the 13 county region of where people are traveling to and from the Central Ohio area or within the Central Ohio area. So you can see that this reach really expands a wide area across Ohio, which is the graphic on the left, and having all of these agencies work together and sharing all that information and all of that data. I'm going to hand it now to Na'ama to talk about what Waycare is about and how the Waycare system is going to help with some of the problems that we're trying to solve at COTA.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Sophia. And I think you really nicely already interlaced a lot of the ways that Waycare will be kind of supporting the IMI project from the technological aspect. And I'll tie a little bit more into that later on in my portion of the talk. But first of all, I want to give a little bit more background about Waycare as an organization and how we came about, just to give people in the conference a little bit more context about what we do, what our vision is, and then specifically how that relates to our work together with COTA as part of the IMI. So Waycare was founded in 2016 in Tel Aviv, Israel. And we actually opened an office in LA in the US a couple of years after. And the organization was really born out of this vision of wanting to give a response to the worrisome state of transportation in the US and in the world more broadly, really, thinking about how we can effectively reduce the number of traffic accidents and congestion that we're seeing on the roads. And if you look on the screen, you'll be able to see, just the amount of time that people spend in traffic on average every year is really so high. And even more concerning than that, of course, is the number of fatalities that we see out on the road each year. 37,000 people is a lot of people, not to mention, the health ramifications which come together with accidents, economic ramifications. So this really is a huge problem plaguing our cities. And Waycare really came about from this vision of how can we help solve that? And how can we take this city-first approach to managing this transportation problem. So we really took it as our mission to kind of focus on a few pillars, and those few pillars in our mind are the forces for technological innovation. So looking specifically at things such as road safety and quality of life, interagency communication and collaboration, which Sophia was touching to before, are really kind of important aspects of how we can change the way that cities operate and the way that transport organizations operate to help provide citizens with improved safety and a better quality of life overall. So having that in mind, Waycare came about and we developed a cloud-based incident management platform that really uses artificial intelligence and algorithms to provide organizations with the ability to be a lot more proactive in the way that they manage traffic and in the way that they manage cities overall. So our solution is a SaaS-based solution, and it's a tool that can be used by traffic management centers, departments such as roadway maintenance, transit agencies, of course, and the likes. And I think the unique thing about Waycare is also that we have this ability to provide an interface for desktop operators and dispatchers, as well as an interface for field users where they connect by mobile devices such as tablets, for example, and they can communicate within the organization in real time and help address incidents and resolve them and clear the roadway as fast as possible together, which is really interesting. But of course, another key aspect of what Waycare does is providing these algorithms to surface alerts for operators in a way that helps them to react to things a lot faster. And I guess that is kind of the really big question is, how do we do that? How do we help these organizations work better together? And how do we help them use information in a way that can make them a lot more proactive than how they work today? So the answer to a lot of this really lies in data. And what we're doing is leveraging vast amounts of data that we're getting from city infrastructure. So if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, we get a lot of information from city-based resources such as cameras, road sensors, weather sensors, and the likes. And we interlace that with kind of the huge amounts of data that we get from private sources today. So whether that's from connected vehicles or navigation devices, fleet devices, and the likes, we're able to interlace this local data together with a variety of private data. So average speeds, harsh braking, swerving, information about incidents, and so on. We pull all of that information together in a way that would make sense for the operators to act upon, as well as for managers to kind of really look at the data and try and make forward-looking decisions about how they can improve operations moving forward as well. An important aspect, I think, also to mention, if you look in the central part of the screen, is that we're able to also provide operators with a tool to then reach back out to the public. So send information to outlets such as Twitter and Waze, 511 and the like, so that drivers out on the road in real time can be informed about what decisions they can make to avoid traffic and as well avoid certain areas such as construction to hopefully reduce the amount of accidents that we see out on the road. Bringing in all of this data from the local sources, from the private sources in one place is kind of the first half of the story. Second half of the story is the artificial intelligence and algorithms that we run on top of the data and we use to process the data that really produce these actionable insights that then become much more relevant to the operators and the users of the software. So our incident identification algorithm, for example, is able to surface various alerts to operators and say, hey, you should look over here, there could be a potential accident. Or our crash prediction algorithm, for example, is able to alert users about potential sections of roadway that are more risky than others at certain times of day. So that again ties into this whole kind of proactive response to how cities manage traffic and how they prepare for potential incidents. Information also relating to irregular congestion, so we can provide alerts about segments of road that are currently experiencing congestion that is not usually seen at these times of days on these types of roads, and similar information such as that. So I think, as I was mentioning before, that part of it is bringing the right data together, good quality data from these various sources. And the other part is how do we present it in a digestible, visual way that makes sense for operators to act on and make decisions upon. And analytics, of course, is a massive component on that. And I think that is also when the managerial level of the platform comes in. So we kind of prepare various dashboards and reports and information for managers to then take back and look and consider what's working well, what's working less well, where do we need to position more resources, how can we help prepare and negate certain types of incidents and events in certain places. So that plays a huge role in that as well. Just before we kind of go back to the IMI, I think it's worth discussing a case study that we have from Southern Nevada, which is one of our flagship clients, because we had a very unique opportunity with them really to work with a number of partners in that area. So the Regional Transportation Commission for Southern Nevada, who operate the Traffic Management Center in Vegas, were collaborating on our platform together with the local Freeway Service Patrol, the Nevada Maintenance Department, the Nevada Highway Patrol, and they were all coming together on this one platform to really make sure that they were responding to incidents faster, they were clearing the roadways from disturbances really quickly, and they were able to resume traffic flow as fast as possible. We've had this relationship with Nevada for several years now. Some of the analytics that we managed to pull out from the recent partnerships and projects that we've been working on with them, which you can see on the screen, are really interesting. So starting from the left-hand side, we can see that Waycare has really increased exposure to the number of incidents that operators are able to identify. So that 21% increase is a huge increase in terms of the resources that operators have today, especially in areas where there's specific camera blind spots and they don't have ground truth about what's happening there. They're able to see these alerts coming in from our private partners, connected vehicle data and the likes, and really alerts about incidents and send out units to the road to deal with them as fast as possible. The middle portion, and it's something that actually Sophia alluded to before, is the faster incident identification. So on average, looking over a period in 2019, we helped identify incidents on average 9 minutes faster. And as you know, when it comes to roadway accidents, 9 minutes, even a minute can be the difference between life or death. That kind of change and reduction in time is really, really critical and something that we worked very closely with the agencies on helping to do. And that kind of correlation between the desktop operators and field users really helped to push that faster. And the final portion that I wanted to talk about is the crash prevention program that we worked on specifically with the Nevada Highway Patrol. We created, we were working together on a program with them as part of the Vision Zero program that they had. And the idea was that we, based on our crash prediction algorithms, provided them with recommendations on where to position troopers at certain times of day. And that positioning ultimately led to kind of a reduction of speed and improvement in driver behavior on certain portions of road. And that change was so significant that we saw a 10% per month average decline in accidents, looking at a 6-month period in 2020. So that really is kind of where we see the technology aspect come in, so the algorithms and the predictive side, together with working with people and agencies to understand how they operate and implementing this in a smart way in the city to help make our roads safer. So how does this all tie into what we're doing with the IMI and the Waycare software and what value we can bring? And that's kind of the question that we want to thread back on here. So Waycare is looking at building its transit use cases, specifically with COTA in the Central Ohio region, to see how we can bring together transit agencies and other partners from across the region to work together. So instead of kind of working in silos, how can they work together across really different characteristics? So we have counties that are more rural and counties that are more urban, and their transit operations can be extremely different, and the operations and the resources will also vary. So we're looking at how to bring all of those together. And I think the stage of the project where we're at now is to understand how these agencies work, what their challenges are, what their goals are. And by understanding that information, we then bring together the relevant data that will help them make better decisions, both in real time and looking forward. And together with that data, we're working very closely with COTA and other organizations in Central Ohio to translate that data, I think, in a visual way that makes sense for different types of users. So for operators to be able to make decisions. So today, a lot of the agencies and counties that we're working with don't necessarily know if they have services from other counties running as part of their counties, and people moving in between. The idea really is to connect people for employment, for medical care, for education. And if the counties and their transit agencies within them don't have this visibility of what's going on and who's moving around and what services are operating in real time, especially as we start moving to more on-demand services, then that can be challenging. So our goal is really to see how we can bring that information together and really build this truly regional tool. This is an item Sophia and I both wanted to kind of loop back on now, and it's talk a little bit about how we're using kind of these data-driven items to really provide actionable insights for partners in Ohio. So Sophia, did you want to say a few words about this as well?
Sure. So thanks, Na'ama, for kind of giving us an overview of the Waycare system and the cloud platform. And kind of just to kind of bring it up a level, and I think this is a really important thing for the audience to understand, is that the transportation industry is one of the last industries to really embrace technology, especially this type of technology. And when you really start to think about all the things that Na'ama was saying and the problems that we're trying to solve in the Central Ohio area, it's amazing that we can use data in this way and how this really can change how a city might function and move. And I want to really leave that with the audience. We're really trying at COTA to rethink how mobility, what mobility is and how mobility might be in a region. And if I take it back to what COTA's mission is to move every life forward, is that we want to make sure that we keep on moving. And that means that how are we moving as a city and as an organization? And having this larger look at data and how people are moving and having all of these different pieces of data coming together, I think is really exciting. It's really exciting that as a transit organization that we're looking at this, and it really impacts everyone, even if you don't use transit, because we're looking at the overall mobility. And the ability to making sure that agencies, the agency data, as well as crowdsourcing data, can give us those actionable insights, really empowers us as a community to be able to take actions on many of the things that we were talking about, but in particular accidents, and being able to maybe prevent or at least be able to respond to an accident with a much more proactive manner. So really excited that we're launching on this endeavor with Waycare, and really excited to see what some of the things are to come as we move forward.